What's up, family?
What's up?
So culty.
What's up, listeners?
Hello, listeners. Hello, friends.
Greetings, humans, fellow humans.
Welcome to our first host-only episode here on Figuring It Out. What's up, guys?
What's up?
What's up?
So we are, first of all drinking something.
Yes. Cheers.
Just to make this a little bit more interesting. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. What's in that, Eric?
Whiskey.
Just whiskey? Just drinking whiskey through a straw?
And Dr.
Through a
Pepper.
straw.
Keeping it classy.
It's just a jug of alcohol.
So we thought it would be cool to start off the show with a way for everybody to kind of get to know us a little bit better. So we have put together a few different segments that we're going to be using throughout the show during the interviews. And we figure, why not put ourselves through this before we put some of our guests through it? So what do we got? What do we got first?
So the first thing I was thinking we could talk about is really like our first sledgehammer moments, like the moments where we think we have everything figured out and then something in life happens and you feel completely lost. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about, what I'm doing.
I think that's just my 20s, like the whole decade.
You're not even.
You're still in your 20s?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, okay, barely. I'm hanging on by a thread in my 20s.
You like to remind me of it, though.
Well, that's because you're old. So.
Jesus.
8 months, guys.
Hey, she's in her
months.
30s and I'm in my 20s.
Episode 1, the last episode. Okay, so I guess we'll start with the eldest among us.
Wow.
I'll just go first, just out of respect.
What's the first time that you felt completely out of your depths? Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Everything I thought I knew is no longer there.
Honestly, I think I would probably go back to when we lived in Fresno. Whenever you were starting to question everything. I remember like having like a freak out moment of like, I never thought I would face this. And then I remember buying you DVDs, the Case for Christ DVDs.
Lee Strobel, shout out
yes.
to Lee.
This
I
episode is
remember-
brought to you by Lee Strobel and The Case for
I do
Christ.
remember-
Strobel,
so
Strobel,
distinctly.
It's Strobel.
Strobel.
For
Strobel.
sure. That
I
tells
didn't
me
know.
how little you
100%.
research.
Yeah, I didn't know who was the author. But anyways, so I remember sitting on the couch on Naomi at our house in
She
Fresno.
bought me the trilogy, by the way.
I did.
Case for Faith, Case for Christ, Case for Creator.
I did. That's what a great wife I was. So I just remember sitting there and me turning it on, and then we started watching it. I don't remember if you paused it or I paused it, but then you looked at me and asked me the question. I just remember being like, it was such an aha moment of like, I don't know. This guy was supposed to fix all the answers because I don't have the answers. And even though I was raised in religion, I still at that point was 100% bought in. But it was the first that I just remember realization of like, I am living my life for something that I don't have the answers to. I'm still looking for somebody else to answer those hard questions for me because I don't have the answers for it.
Yeah, you're still operating from the position of, I know these base level truths to be absolutely true. So I just have to give Travis the evidence from somebody who understands why they're true, but don't ask me because I have no idea.
Exactly. Yeah. And it definitely still took me obviously several years before I actually deconstructed that. But I just remember that being the first time of realizing I didn't have the answer.
And to be fair, just trying to save my name a little bit here. It's not like I was like actively trying to discourage you from
No, not at
doing
all.
anything or anything like that. It was just, I think it was just, we had a conversation or something and it came up and then you were.
Well, it's because you didn't want to go to church on Sunday nights. That's what started all of it.
That's what it was. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I had to go to church because I was working at the church and you didn't want to go. And I was like, but why wouldn't you want to go to church?
Yeah.
But then you started being so logical about it. And I was like, oh, all those reasons make sense.
Yeah. Sunday night church was just like a deal breaker for me at some point because it started to make less and less sense to me. So growing up, for context, we had church Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. And so when we first moved to Fresno, we just like a year into our marriage, maybe 2 years into our marriage, something like that. And Jackie worked at the church. I wasn't working at the church. And so she had to go to church Sunday nights because she worked at the church and that was one of the requirements. And I remember sitting on the couch in my boxers watching football on a Sunday, just like chilling out.
God, you're so cliche.
Well, that's how it was. And because I had never really been able to do that because we were always in church all day Sunday, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I can come home and like sit on my couch, enjoy my TV, watch some football. And then Jackie comes in and was like, okay, we got to go to church. And I was just like,
But it wasn't even church. It was the soul winning.
well, so what happened? No, it wasn't.
Yeah, because it was soul winning. And then
But that night it was a meeting. There was a nursery workers meeting. So that night we get, so I was like begrudgingly threw on a polo and some like khakis or something. We go to church, and that night, instead of a regular service, it was like a nursery workers meeting. So Jackie leaves because she's working in the nursery. So she leaves. There's probably like, I don't know, maybe 20 of us left in the actual service. The pastor leads the nursery workers meeting, and they had like a volunteer from the church. Very nice guy. I'm not trying to say anything mean about him, but he was not a public speaker. He was the janitor at the church for like 30 years. So they wanted him to speak about like being a servant or whatever. So he gets up, and it was the most boring thing that I could ever remember sitting in. And for the first time since college, I fell asleep in the service. So I'm like sitting there with my hand kind of on my face like that, just like trying to be engaged in some sense. I fall asleep, and I wake up, just kind of one of those like weird wake up moments where you're just like, where am I? Oh yeah, I'm in church. And you're just like wiping the sleep out of your eyes, trying to like make sure nobody saw you just dead asleep in the middle of the service. And just dawned on me right then and there. I was like, why am I here right now? I'm literally only here to keep up pretenses with people in the church so they don't think that I'm like a slacker, and they don't give Jackie a hard time for her husband not being at church with her because she has to be here for because she works here. And so, because, Jackie wasn't there, I was by myself. I fell asleep. I didn't get anything out of the service. It was completely boring, and I was upset I was there. It was the whole thing. I was just like, why am I still doing this? Like, I am at this point a full grown man with a mortgage and bills that I'm paying. I can't keep doing this. Yeah. So I think we had a conversation about it, and then it kind of led to some of those things.
Yeah.
So I know we're going to talk a lot more. Are you literally writing an essay? Jeez.
Are you answering an email right now?
Nope.
Okay, come on.
Skype.
Hey, come on. Hey, Skype.
Okay, go.
Jesus, Skype. Okay, so obviously, I think we're going to talk a lot more. Like, it's challenging navigating deconstruction with a spouse. We've talked about that, I think, quite a bit in other shows. But for you, what was kind of your big sledgehammer moment where you're like, this doesn't make sense to me?
There are so many, but I feel like it was the first time that I got into the workforce, because quite literally everything up. What?
Why is that? Your lips made a really funny thing. Sorry.
My lips made a really funny thing.
He said, when I entered the workforce. Sorry, go ahead. Okay,
go.
You said it like it was a branch of the military. Like,
well said,
when I entered the
Jackie.
workforce.
Sorry.
Your lips make really funny thing.
No, did you not see
Your
that?
lips make really funny.
It was really weird. Okay, go.
I had never really had a real quote unquote job up to that point. And so for the first time, I was actually forced to spend time with people that didn't have the exact same worldview that I had. And I had always been taught that it was impossible for these people to be good people. Yeah. That outside of God or Jesus or the church or the Bible or any of those things, that it was impossibility. It wasn't just improbable. It was like, love comes from God. God is love. And if you don't have God, you don't know what it means to love.
You're incapable of it.
Correct. Yeah. Like it's not even something that exists. And so when I started getting around people that I was from all evidence in their lives that they were living good lives and they were impacting the world around them. They had family and friends that they loved and cared about. They were doing good things or up to something that was making a difference in the world or whatever it was. It just at the time was just, it didn't really compute to me. It was like, wait a second, you can't cuss and drink and then also be a good person. That's not how it works, And it was just the initial kind of shock factor of getting to know people outside of my own worldview that I viewed as being like, oh, this is like, these are great people. I would spend time with them. I would hang around with them, and I don't think that they're bad. The only thing that makes them quote unquote bad in my mind are these things that are not even like explicitly talked about in the Bible, like these other elements that are more preferential and that are highly debated depending on the denomination that you're in, like those were the things that I was looking at. And I was like, well, this doesn't seem to be like an inherently bad thing. I just think that it's bad because I'm programmed to believe that this person is a bad person because they don't believe everything that I believe. So for me, that was a really big one, was coming into the workforce for the first time. But then, after that, it just kind of kept happening. That was when I kind of just kept it to myself. I didn't really say anything to anybody. So I just kind of internalized all the thoughts and thought that I would just come back around eventually. And obviously that didn't end up happening.
Like you, I was told so long, like, people outside of the church are scared and mean and cruel and incapable of truly loving anybody. Like, I remember hearing that. Yeah.
Well, sorry to interrupt you. It was like inside of the church, inside of the way that we grew up, it was not even, it was so abstract because they were just like, if you don't find yourself in the center of God's will, you will be a miserable person for the rest of your life. And that scared the crap out of me because I was like, that sounds like a horrible existence on earth, to be miserable for the rest of my life. So let me desperately try to find out this abstract idea of what God's will is. Like, what does that mean? How do I find that? How do I know if I'm in it? How do I know if I'm not in it?
Constant fear that you weren't in it.
Yeah. And it's a self-overcoming objection to the entire idea because, like, oh, if you're unhappy, that has nothing to do with your religion or spirituality or God. That just means that you're not spiritual enough and you're not close enough to God because you're not in God's will. So you just need to figure that out. Once you figure that out, then you're going to be happy. Yeah. It's not a problem with the foundation or the belief system. It's a problem with you, and you need to figure out what God's will is for your life. And if you don't go to church, you're not saved, and all these other things, you clearly can't be in God's will. Therefore, you must be miserable. And so when I got to know these people and saw that, like, they don't seem like they're that bad off, especially compared to the people that I knew in the church that I knew to be miserable.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, it was like, this is clearly not the thing that dictates whether or not you live a happy or fulfilled life.
But that's the thing that was, that's the thing that was tricky for me, is that I started seeing that split where it was like, there's people I know are miserable and hate their life and aren't acting in a way that's right. You know what I mean? And
or like, they don't drink, but they seem to kind of be the dick. You know what I mean? Like, they're judgmental and rude to people for no reason that they don't even know. Like, that seems worse to me than like getting a tattoo or whatever.
Yeah. It for me, the best way I can explain is like, when I deconstructed and said, like, I'm leaving Christianity, like, I had a pastor say, oh, you focused on the bad things. And I think working backward from that statement of like, oh, you focused on the bad, so you only saw the bad, so you're reacting to what you focused on, which is the bad. And I look back at my life and I look at, the abuses and the cover-ups, like with myself, with other people, with, then going into ministry and, making 11 grand in a year, or going into, getting fired because I don't want to pray around an American flag for Donald Trump to win his presidency, or getting, seeing very abusive people get one counseling session and they're back into a position of power. Like, for me, it felt like the bad things seemed to be focused on the epicenter I was in, which is the church. And so for me, like, the sledgehammer was it was a long swing, and a smash of just like, I'm going from like independent Baptist to Southern Baptist to ministry, to being a kid in the ministry, to more, liberal churches, more conservative churches. And it seems like this stuff's following me. And so for me, it came to a point where I was like, if we're claiming this absolute truth or this like transformational religious experience, why are we acting not only the same as everybody else, but like worse? Yeah. Like Hollywood saw, we have a predator, Me Too movement happens. We start addressing it, going full bore on this. Church 2 came 2 years later. Like, the church was behind. And it seems like if there is some kind of supernatural morality that's coming in, that would be cleaned up way ahead of time. Yeah. And the church is consistently behind the curve. So for me, like, my sledgehammer moment was just seeing it not add up in real time for years and not being able to reconcile that anymore.
Yeah, that's the point I think that it got to for all of us, is when you can't reconcile it anymore. When you can't draw the conclusion from something that happens. It's just like, this isn't quite adding up at this point. I don't know how to unsee it.
Yeah.
That's like, you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
But
well, now that we're at such an upbeat point.
Cheers to that, huh?
All right.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk a little bit about first and worst experiences because we're hitting on all these memories.
First and
there
worst.
may be some crossover, so let's
We
play
need a jingle for first and worst.
Get your guitar.
First and worst.
But we'll do. But yeah, we'll do a quick game of first and worst. Let's kind of talk through some of our experiences. First experience, and then worst version of that experience. And we'll start with you. Let's go first and worst memory.
First memory and worst memory. Oof, we're gonna go pretty dark on this one, I guess, huh?
I guess so.
Worst memory?
Yeah.
I mean, that's dark.
That is I thought that's true. That is pretty
Okay,
dark.
first memory of existing is a difficult question to
I know,
answer.
I was gonna say that's really weird.
I remember one time when I was like 3 or 4. This is definitely not my first memory, but this is the first thing that's popping into my head right
We're
now.
literally not doing the rules of the game.
I remember when I was like 2.5, somewhere in there. We were living in Lake LA with my grandparents at the time. And I remember spilling milk on the counter. And I think it was my grandma, she was a great grandma, but at this particular memory, I just remember her like being really mad at me for like spilling this milk. And I just remember feeling really sad about that.
Oh, that's such a sad memory.
This is dark.
This is dark.
And I literally cried over spilled milk.
So after she finished beating you, what's your worst memory? Or is that it? Because that's pretty bad.
So worst memory, I mean, it's gotta be when we went through everything with your dad.
Oh yeah.
Either that or when we found out about our miscarriage.
Oh yeah.
That was a
big
pretty
one.
rough one. I think that one made it worse because it was like, it was such a
Supposed to be a
high,
high,
to such a low because it wasn't a regularly scheduled checkup that we found out. We were trying to go in and figure out the sex of the baby. So
was like the
it was
3D
like one of those,
ultrasound.
third party companies that does a 3D ultrasound, and you walk in and there's like little stuffed animals there that you can get and put the baby's heartbeat in there and stuff. And I just remember her looking around for it, and we could tell something was wrong because she was like looking for a while, and then she told us that she couldn't find a heartbeat. And so that I just remember that being just like we're gonna find out what gender, and then it was like, oh, I guess we're going to spend the next 3 or 4 weeks going through a nightmare of a DNC process before everything eventually finally subsided with that. And then Jackie had to do blood treatments for a year afterwards because of the type of miscarriage it was. So that was pretty crappy.
That was rough.
Fun stuff.
Fun, yeah.
All right.
What about you, Eric?
Man.
Be with that. Spilled milk.
Trying to think of this episode format and how we got to this moment. No, I mean, for me, my first memory very clearly, I mean, like because I think first memory, you push back as far as you can remember and like get to that. And like, I think, honestly, my first memory I always think of is watching a black and white Errol Flynn. You know Errol Flynn? No. Insert clip of Errol Flynn here. But he was like the romantic leading man of like the 30s. And I remember very vividly watching a scene from one of his movies. And I remember the scene, I remember what it was, but I just remember like my mom watching it and me watching it and like just thinking about like, oh, this is cool. Like, how are they doing this? Like, what is this? Like in from like it's funny. My first memory is like a movie memory because like, obviously, like, I think that influenced my creative side a lot. But I just remember thinking, like, oh, that's cool. Like, that's cool someone can do this. And, like, that's my earliest. I was probably 4 or 5. I don't really remember anything before that. But I don't know if maybe I blocked out something bad before that. But, like, I don't remember anything until that moment. Like, that's when I feel like I kind of, like, woke up to, like, this is life. That's my happy early memory. No, I think my worst memory is, I mean, there's probably 2. I think the first one I can think of would be in high school, like realizing like, oh, my bubble burst and like, oh, there's bad people in my denomination, which I just couldn't fathom at the time. That for me was really hard. And I think seeing my relationships fracture with like people that were like family and actual family was hard. I think our miscarriage was probably another one like that. But I think that was compounded with, aside from that being traumatic, like we were traveling as missionaries at the time. We were in a third world country. Like we're getting in a car, driving to a third world hospital with like one light bulb that works in the lobby. Half the ceiling's gone. You can see the sky from inside, and can't understand what the doctors are saying. Like that was a lot. And I think the other layer of that is like trying to communicate that with people who were outside of it, who just didn't seem to process that it was a scary moment. You know what I mean? Like I remember calling somebody, who I actually used to work for. I remember calling and him being like, yeah, that must be really tough for your wife. And I was like, that's tough for both. Like, that's a really hard thing. Like, I'm
just
struggling
acknowledge
with this
is a tough situation.
Yeah. And so that was really hard. But I think for me, like, that would be the two that come to mind, like, instantly kind of going through that.
Jackie?
First memory. I don't know how old I was, but I remember living in my grandparents' house in Canyonville, and I remember climbing up like these logs that they had that for like, I would assume it had to be firewood, but I feel like they were like long, skinny logs from what I can remember. But I remember like playing in it and climbing on and getting a sticker in my hand. And I remember my grandpa getting his little pocket knife out and me being so brave and sitting there and him getting the sticker out of my hand. It's probably my first memory.
You guys, traumatic grandparents.
I know. No, he helped
That was
me.
positive.
That was a positive thing. I remember, and he told me I was so brave. I remember sitting on his lap in the rocking chair and him getting it out of my hand and feeling like I was super brave for that. I was so brave.
So brave, Jacqueline.
I think you still feel proud of that moment.
I did.
That's good.
Yeah.
Worst would definitely be my dad dying. I just remember that like last couple hours just watching him breathing and then the breath getting like, I mean, I feel like at the end it was like a minute in between. So
there was several.
It was where I was like,
times where it was like,
that was the worst part, was just like not knowing, like I don't know anybody's taken anybody off life support, but they told us that going into it. It was like it could be instant, or it could be like hours, and it was a full 24 hours.
Yeah, it was over a day, I think.
Yeah, over a day. And I just remember where I started watching the pulse on his neck.
Yeah,
just seeing like when that stopped, and then even then, still not feeling like. But he's not actually gone. Like I remember just being like very much, and then the realization of like, oh no, like that's it.
Yeah.
Like, and then where do you go from there? Yeah, that was
we went to like Applebee's from there. Actually.
I do remember that on the drive home. Yep, and I got a huge ice cream sundae. Yep, it was Applebee's. I don't know why we stopped at Applebee's driving home to Fresno to Madera.
There's not much from Lodi to Fresno.
Yep. Yeah. So that was really deep. Can we go on to something?
Well, this has been fun. Deep. Let's play Twister. Let's pick this up a little bit. Let's not be. We'll trauma dump plenty in the next couple episodes. But let's talk a little bit about your first and worst trip, and we'll make this international because Travis likes to be a jerk and say, "What do you mean the trip across town?"
Well, like Eric was like, "Well, we'll do our first trip."
Okay, let's say this: it can be your first international trip, or it can be your first trip out of your state. Let's say that first out of state trip.
Well,
so this can be.
That was all I was asking, Eric. You got to define it, because there's a trip to a grocery store, there's a trip to the town next door.
Do I need to go first on this one?
Can you stop?
It's a trip to somewhere. It's a trip to like your grandparents' house. Like, what are you talking about here?
First was our honeymoon. That was the first time I left the country.
No,
out
of the state or out of the country?
Out of the country. No, we drove across the border to Tijuana. Does that count?
Yes.
Okay, that was my first then. And that's when I got my dreadlocks, babe. Travis loves.
I'm gonna dig up a picture.
Nope.
We're gonna show you guys a picture of Jackie's.
No, we really
dreadlocks. Yeah. Oh, it's worth it.
I thought that was so cool. And I left him in for a day because it gave me the worst headache ever.
It's worth it.
So was that your worst?
No, my worst was New Zealand. Do you remember that? And I don't even remember. You made a post about it because it was like 6 things in a row. Yeah. Where like we were already at a super bad point, like between the two of us
in our marriage.
Our marriage, it was like probably the worst our marriage ever.
Let's go to New Zealand.
I know, right? Yeah. Well, we'd already planned it, and it was just like a series of unfortunate events.
Yeah,
but then
a series of unfortunate events followed us to New Zealand
because you dropped your phone first. That's what started it. It was in that.
I think that was afterwards.
That's what started it, because it was when we were flying from Christchurch or wherever over to Christchurch.
Before that, though, we had already lost. Somebody stole our wallet.
That was after that. That was in. Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Is this don't look at me.
Here. No, it was.
So,
okay.
I feel like a marriage counselor right now.
So we lost $500 because someone stole our wallet.
It wasn't even they stole it though. I think I dropped it. That was the most annoying part too. I don't know where it was.
Dropped it like out of a suitcase or something.
Probably was your fault. Yeah.
And then I got a speeding ticket driving down New Zealand. Yeah, but we didn't know about the other ones till we got home. We got them in the mail. Yeah. Only one where a cop actually pulled me over. Yeah. And then I broke my phone.
Yeah, you literally dropped your phone, and then we went back to the Airbnb that night, and then you sat on the Airbnb bed and snapped the Airbnb bed.
Yeah.
Like because you were mad. So you snapped it, and that's when we took the plane from whatever that weird town was that we flew over to Christchurch.
Yeah.
And then we got charged like 3 times the amount for our bags getting on that plane, because that was the only plane we took internally.
It was a lot.
It was a lot. And then the wallet. Yeah, it was just, that was rough.
So I feel like a marriage counselor. What was your first trip, and was that your worst trip?
My first trip, my first international trip was, no, it was not England. It was a cruise to Mexico, to Ensenada. We just went to Catalina Island and Ensenada, and then turned around. It was like a 5-day cruise when I was a kid. The worst international trip. I mean, it's hard to say like the whole trip. I guess I probably would say New Zealand, just because it just wasn't like a fun time because of everything going on in our marriage at the time. But the worst like experience on a trip that turned out, to be okay. But it was when we were in Costa Rica, and I was there. It was right after Jackie's dad passed. And we were looking, it was me and like 4 or 5 friends were just backpacking through a few different Central American countries. And we were going down, searching for this waterfall to jump off of. And we drove our like Nissan Xterra down this hill, like a very steep hill. We thought it had 4-wheel drive, which will come into the story in a second. And we get down to the bottom of this water. We paid money to get in. We drive all the way down to the bottom, get to the waterfall. It was literally like a 3-foot waterfall. It was horribly disappointing. We couldn't even like get in the water or jump off of anything. It was just like, all right, well, this was a massive waste of time. So we turn around and start heading back up the mountain. And this one part of the hill was too steep. And turns out the 4-wheel drive didn't work on the car. So we're literally burning out on the clay dirt that was on the hill. The car starts sliding backwards. We all get out. We try to push it up. Nothing's working. We literally sit at the bottom of this hill for 2.5 hours. We're just like, well, this is where we die. We're like, or we just hike up here and hope that the rental car company covers like lost vehicle. Did
you die on that mountain?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. So that's the story.
Thanks for watching.
So we ended up these like expats came down there with 4-wheelers and found us. So they drove all the way back up, found somebody with a 4-wheel drive vehicle. They drove down, hooked us up, and pulled us out to the next stop. And we got out, but it was basically just a massive waste of a day, because it took us like an hour and a half to drive to find the waterfall, and then we had to drive back, and we got stuck and lost. So that was kind of a crappy experience.
Wow. Yeah.
Was it Costa Rica you just went to? No. That we just went to? Mm-hmm. That was a crappy experience too. I'm trying to think. I was like, what was that? I couldn't remember.
Holy
when
smoke.
We landed, or you weren't on that plane, were you? When we like diverted.
I was in the car with you for hours.
Yeah, you were. Yeah. All of us together. That was terrible.
Thanks a lot, Jackie.
Sorry. I'm saying that one was pretty bad too. We got diverted and they were trying to like make us get back on a bus to drive 4 hours.
Were you present for that? I don't remember you existing at all.
That was pretty, and we all squished in that car that drove like 4 hours.
I like that. I felt close to everybody.
Of course you did.
Especially Kyle, lap sitting. My first experience leaving the country was going to Navajoa, Mexico.
Everyone was Mexico. That's interesting.
Because we lived in California, which is basically
like 2 hours from the border.
California is essentially Mexico.
Yeah, Southern California.
Southern California is essentially Mexico. And I mean that with utmost respect.
Please don't cancel us on our first episode.
No, seriously. It very much is. Like, people are speaking Spanish. Like, most of my friend group is Spanish. Like, going to Mexico didn't feel jarring. The way that, like, going to India felt jarring.
Right.
And so, yeah.
Like, there's not a lot of culture shock crossing the border.
Like, you're eating literally the same food.
Yeah, that's
You're hanging out with the same people. you understand just as much. It's the same, you know? So that was my first time out of the country. That was in like 6th grade, 5th grade. And my worst time out of the country, just, you know, not mentioning my story from before, like if I'm just looking at like miserable experience, was going to India the second time. I got sick the first 2 times I went to India, and now I feel like I'm bulletproof because like India will just like test your fortitude,
Your faith.
yeah, everything. And so we were going to the Taj Mahal in Agra, you know, so we drove like 4 hours from Delhi, maybe. I feel like I'm probably going to be wrong. But we had to get up really early in the morning to get to the Taj Mahal so we could be there for sunrise, which was so disappointing because it was so smoggy that day. You couldn't see freaking anything. So we got up super early, and while we're there, the guy I'm with goes to the bathroom for the whole time we're there. And he's just sitting in there. And I'm like, what's up? He's like, I just feel sick. He's like, my stomach's upset. And that's very common for anybody traveling there. So on the way back to the hotel, we stop and he pukes. And I'm like, sucks to be you. I'm good. I had my sick experience the last time I was there. We get back to the hotel. We're sharing a suite together, one bed. You know, we got the little pillow divider and all that stuff.
Sweet.
It was a nice room.
Oh.
But literally right when I walked into the room, I went to the bathroom and puked. And it like started like the rest of the day through the night. Every time I would move, I would throw up. Oh. So like literally like, you know, when you're just so sick, like just a little movement, like I would feel him shift and then I would just run to the bathroom and puke. And then we ordered room service and it was like, what's the tamest thing we can get for our stomach? India, everything's spicy, like straight up. Like it is all spicy. Like it's one of the hardest. It's the reason so
they didn't have any like saltines and chicken noodle soup.
So I ordered tomato soup and I ordered crackers. Because I was like, crackers are going to settle my stomach. So I eat a cracker, I throw up. I drink Sprite, I had them bring it up, throw up. Then tomato soup, so I take a bite of the soup, and it's like burning hot. And I go puke. I look in there, there's freaking pepper flakes in the soup that they had added to make it spicy.
I like that you just kept trying, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you because
I was like,
because
there was nothing in me. Like I felt like I was literally gonna fall apart.
I don't even tempt it when I'm sick.
But I would say
I don't eat for like 3 days.
But all of my worst experiences traveling have been India, and all my best have been in India. Like India is a beautiful place, wonderful place. But the first 2 times I was there were awful. Like, I mean, I still have problems in my ear from the first trip there, but that's a long story. We'll talk about it a different time. Anyway, not to take too much time on that. I think, thank you. Lastly, let's talk a little bit about truth or myth.
Oh, yes.
Okay. You have the list. I don't have it.
I will head up this segment.
Okay.
Travis.
Yeah.
First and worst or first? Okay, are we doing first?
Why are you
and
so
worst?
like?
Or first or worth? Oh, we're doing truth or myth. Yeah. Wow, I'm sorry. I totally missed that.
We just did
okay.
that.
Let's start over. Here's truth or myth. I just shut up. That's why I thought
Are we doing first or worst?
Anyways, truth or myth, Travis. You're gonna go first. Oh, Eric, have you went first on anything yet? Okay.
Sorry.
We're gonna start truth or myth.
I'm glad we got this segment now.
And we're gonna go and start with you, Eric, because I don't think you went first yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have the questions? I literally have
truth or myth.
Okay.
Destiny.
Myth.
Okay. Law.
No, truth. Sorry. I was last one.
Wow. Just
myth.
change that quickly.
Truth.
Just flippity flop.
Okay.
Say it again.
Destiny.
Truth.
Okay. Law of attraction.
Myth.
Interesting.
How dare you?
Love at first sight. Answer carefully.
Truth.
I only have eyes for you.
Myth.
Psychics.
Myth. Straight up. Myth.
And lastly,
I'm talking to you, psychic. Myth.
demons.
Myth.
Okay.
Truth. No, truth.
Oh my goodness, you are so confused on these truth or myths. Okay.
Ask me again. The last one.
Demons.
Myth. You know what? Honestly, you know what is really funny is that So like in deconstruction, that's one of the last things for me that I feel very strongly about
What?
is demons.
That they do exist? Okay.
Okay.
All right, Travis.
That's fair.
You're next.
Yes. Okay.
That is fair.
Same ones.
Okay.
Let's see how contradicting you are. Truth or myth? Destiny.
Myth.
Did I say truth for that? Or
I
myth?
don't remember.
You flippity flopped on
I
that.
love how you said,
Flippity-flop.
let's see how contradictory you are while not having any remembrance of the first
Well, because you're going to
test
put
group
these next to each other.
compare.
Yeah, you
Oh,
got
yeah.
this. Okay. Law of attraction.
Mostly myth.
Wait. Can we just go in a circle? Just ask the
the
question
same
while I'll
ones?
say it.
Oh yeah. Let's
That
That
Yeah.
makes
do
more
it.
sense. Okay.
Okay.
Starting over. Okay.
Just say from the beginning. We're going to do truth or myth.
Okay. We are going to do truth or myth. You go in a circle. Eric, you're going to start. Truth or myth?
Myth. Oh, wait. Not yet. Sorry. Go ahead.
Destiny.
Truth.
Myth.
Myth.
Wow.
Outnumbered. Okay.
We were supposed to do that.
Truth
We're destined to do that.
or myth?
Myth.
Law of attraction.
Can you define that really quick? Because I feel like I'm going to say myth.
I would view law of attraction as like if you do something enough times, like it's gonna like goodness will come to you, like the law of attraction.
No,
That's
the
how I
law of
view it.
attraction was more like it's almost like
What
Well, I think about like praying. Something
it's
something
almost
with
like
praying.
personal development doctrine
That's
that
what
I'm
I
not
mean, yeah.
100% bought into. Like I think that it like
It depends on
I
their
think-
definition. Is it like manifestation?
right. Yeah.
I would
manifestation.
say myth in the sense of if you say something over and over again, you're going to get it.
Right.
I'd say truth if you act like the person who deserves the thing you're trying to manifest.
Yeah, right. There's a lot of good things that come with identity. Like shifting your identity and believing that
I
you're
think
capable
most
of something.
people- for the
but
way
just
most
like
people define
writing
it
it down
as
on a
myth.
piece of paper doesn't
Yeah.
mean the universe is going to
Vision
hand it to you
board,
on a silver
myth.
platter.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you say it like that, then I would say myth.
I would say it's mostly myth. I think there's good things about it, but if you're just like depending
It's
on that
changing
to be the
your-
thing
think
that like
definition's
gets you
important
out of
on
where
that.
you are, like it's not going to work.
Okay. Love at first sight.
Myth. Or truth.
I would say truth.
Really? I would say
Oh.
myth.
Jeez. Well, your guys' story just got
Ouch.
interesting. Okay, go next.
Okay.
We can talk about that story about Travis. I was a snob when he first met
No,
me.
I-
So
I-
love
That's
at first
because you
sight.
were a
I
snob.
think
Well,
love.
was
I
it
didn't
love at
say
first
that we
sight?
had love at first sight.
Oh,
I'm saying I believe
ouch.
in love
Okay.
at first sight.
All right.
What do you mean, ouch? You didn't have it either. We were in ninth grade.
Again, I
was
feel like
14.
a marriage counselor.
You're gonna fuck
Jesus
a lot.
Christ.
Okay. Truth or myth? I only have eyes for you.
I think this is a
You.
myth.
Yeah, it's a
wait.
wait.
What?
Because I said I only
I
have
know
eyes for
you
you,
only
and
have
I
eyes
pointed
for-
to you, but I was going to say you.
Oh, I see.
Jackie.
Okay.
I say myth as well on this one.
Wait,
I have to
I think
agree
it's
with
BS.
that. I'm gonna
now
say
I feel
myth.
like we're saying, is it a myth that you only have eyes for Travis? And then that's a
Well,
That is a myth.
that is a myth as well. Yeah,
Yeah. I don't think I'm the most attractive woman in the entire world. Like,
it's impossible to
not.
not
Let's
think other
cut to our
people.
even
are
if I
also
was
attractive.
the most
Just restart that.
attractive
We're
woman
going
in the
off
entire
base.
world.
Go ahead.
Psychics.
myth.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a hard myth on this.
If you're watching and you're a psychic, you already knew my answer, but it's myth.
I'm going to agree myth on that one. All right. I feel like I need to go first on one of these because then it just looks like I'm copying you
You're
guys. I'm not
literally
like
running
that.
the segment. You can.
Yeah.
Okay, truth or myth for myself. Demons. I'm gonna be like I say I want to delete this one, but that one I think is true. Eric.
I'm tempted to say true. I feel like that's one of the things that I have a hard time
Still struggling with
letting
the
go
answer?
of, is that there's some force out there.
Sure, I'll say myth.
Okay. Well,
I think
know
that
who the
there's
demon is in this
positive
room.
and negative forces, but like literal demons
Actual
that
demons.
are trying to prevent you from.
I think
being a
all
good
of
person,
these,
I don't
if you
think
get into
it's
the definitions, you start having a more nuanced conversation.
Yeah, I think these just need to be a quick like what you think of is
myth.
Okay. All right.
Truth.
That is
Okay.
all for truth and myth that we have.
Cool. Well, hopefully that helped you understand us better. I'm more confused than ever. So I hope that was
Okay, so
helpful
this is
to
going to
you.
be segments of marriage counseling
But-
and Eric feeling confused. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you for watching.
See, perfect face. What? Huh?
See see you this time next week. No, I honestly, I love that there's so many seeds of conversation I think we're going to have fleshed out.
Agreed.
But right now, I'm mainly confused.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap. We are all confused.